Welcome to the Retirement Blueprint Show. I'm your co-host, Mark Henry, and that means we're joined today, of course, with the CEO, Tim Lofton. Tim, thanks for having me back on.
Thanks, Mark. I love having you on.
Well, I appreciate it. This has been fun, but I love the content of this show. You know, if you're new to watching this show, you're in for a treat today. You have a real specialty firm, and I guess a lot of people, and overuse word, that holistic word. But the way you talk about investing and retiring and saving and planning for retirement is just so much information that's just not out there. And I think that's why the viewing audience finds this show so fun to watch. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to hit you kind of hard today. And a lot of people ask, they say, Mark, now, y'all script this and you know what you're going to say? Let me be very clear. Tim has no idea what I'm going to ask him.
I have no idea.
And that's a truthful statement.
Right.
So, but I think it's better that way because that retirement is not scripted. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't. We have this plan sometimes, but you told me, Mark, that's one of the things about our plans is we have to make them flexible and ready to change with what happens during retirement. That's right. And I love that. So here's what I want to hit you with. I actually had someone ask me this. They know I do these shows around the country, and I was stopped and they said, hey, Mark, you know, do I need a retirement plan? And I said, well, of course you do this. I said, why would you think you don't? They said, well, I know about the 4% rule, so I'm good to go. Mm-hmm. And I said, really? And they really, I mean, they were jokingly saying it, but I really believe they were serious. And so tell me about that. Why is this concept of the 4% rule? What is it, and why is it just simply not going to work?
Sure. Well, Mark, there's been lots of studies done that show that whatever it is that you've saved, that you can take a 4% withdrawal from your account each year, and that you won't run out of money. So that's what it is. That's the theory behind it.
Okay.
I actually wrote a white paper a couple years ago that talked about some of the times that doesn't work out. But here's the thing, Mark. We see this every day in the office. People will come in and they have this report from, you know, some big box firm that says, you know, as long as they average a certain percent return on their portfolio and they only take out 4%, that they won't run out of money. Now, the problem with that is that there's been several periods of time, 18 years, 25 years, 17 years, where the market's got a 0% return. So my question is to people when they come in, what happens if those periods of time happen during your retirement? Then that 4% thing doesn't work out. And Mark, you know what happens when it doesn't work out?
Number one rule in retirement just got broken.
It just got broken. You run out of money. And so,
I mean, I just don't want to run out of money when I retire one day.
Nobody does. That's why it's the number one concern. I mean, other than maybe Bill Gates, everybody worries about running out of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and they should.
Yeah.
You know, when I think about, I hear this question a lot about, you know, people want to help their grandchildren or help their children with college, let's say, and other things like that, which is all noble. It's all great.
Sure.
But even with, I love my 3 kids. I have 3 amazing children. But what was more important to me than helping them with their college or their down payment on their house was ensuring that I was never a burden to my children. That scares me more than anything because I don't want to think that I will have to rely on someone else during my retirement. And I don't think that's fair to my children to have to rely on them during retirement.
You know, Mark, it might scare your kids a little bit too, right?
No kidding. Probably does. So how do you build a plan that gives me the confidence? I've heard a lot of times people use that Monte Carlo thing, some kind of gambling tool or something. And, hey, I got an 80% probability, I'm good. And you said it's a lot more to it than just that.
It is. And honestly, it's a lot more simpler than doing simulations and things of that nature. I mean, at the end of the day, most people know what they need on a monthly basis.
Okay.
We also know approximately what inflation is going to be over time. And so we have the numbers to work with. Then all we have to do is figure out how do we get to a point where those numbers are guaranteed. And a lot of times we can do that with Social Security, we can do that with pension, we can do that sometimes with different investments that offer a guaranteed income.
Okay.
Once we get people to that point, Then we have to plan for the what ifs. And that's where the income plan comes in, and all of the contingencies that can happen of a loss of spouse, and that spouse happened to be the one with the big pension and the big Social Security.
Happens.
Or, potentially a health care concern. So there's a lot of things that factor into it, and then you got to look through the lens of taxes on top of that. So it's easy and complicated all at the same time.
Well, and I love, though, that you break it down, and I love when you said you talk about health care, because I got to tell you, so many people that I've talked to think they have a retirement plan, but it doesn't include health care. And you were telling me about a Fidelity study that you had seen that said the average 65-year-old couple will spend $300,000 on health care in their lifetime from 65 to passing away.
Right.
And a lot of that is just spent on the rising deductibles and Medicare premiums and all the other things. But that's almost three. How could you possibly think you have a retirement plan that doesn't talk about health care?
Well, Mark, you can't.
You just can't.
You can't.
You can't leave that out.
No.
But when people come in, how many of them actually coming in say, hey, Tim, I've already got a retirement plan. I just want you to look it over and see what you think. Do you see many of those?
Yes. They come in with their 3-ring binder.
Okay.
And they hand me the 3-ring binder, and I wouldn't
What's
even
it made
say
of statements?
It's got statements in it. That's what it
That's
is.
not a plan.
Sometimes a will. A lot of times that will is 10, 15, 20 years old.
Wow.
It might have an old life insurance policy that they don't even know why they still own.
Okay.
And other than that, and maybe sometimes they have a budget, which is always helpful. That they know what they're spending, but nobody has looked at everything. Nobody has asked them the questions that really should be asked for somebody that's entering or in retirement.
Yeah. That it just seems like, and again, not picking on the big box firms. You were with them for years.
Sure.
But it just seems a disservice to these people that have worked so hard to try to head into something that's a 25, 30-year retirement and try to do that without a plan, without a written plan.
And Mark, the worry is that they don't find out that there's a problem until the end, when it's too late. The great thing about doing that planning at 55, 60, 65 is that there is plenty of time to fix almost any problem.
To affect change. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. We're going to have to go to commercial break, but it's coming up. But I want to make sure I've got this opportunity correct, and I know you told me this, but I just want to say it again. So you will personally meet with many of these people that call in. Is that correct?
Yes.
You're going to sit down as the CEO, because that's not typical. I hope you know this is really different. It's not typical that happens. You go to the big box retail firm and you don't get the guy that's name's on the building to actually sit with you, but you're willing to do that. This is an amazing opportunity. We're going to open the phone lines right now, Tim. 855-684-3485. Now, why did I just read that number? Because that is an important number for you. I want you to write it down. That is the number you call right now. Operators are standing by. And if you're one of the next 10 callers, Tim has agreed in his firm to take you in and build your very own retirement blueprint plan. I've seen others charge $1,000, $1,500 for something like this. They're going to give it away absolutely complimentary with no obligations. You can leave your checkbook at home, but you do have to do one thing. You have to pick up the phone and call 855-684-3485. Again, 855-684-3485 for your very own retirement blueprint plan. You know you need it. You know you deserve it. It's time to take control of your retirement future. We've got a whole lot more coming up on the Retirement Blueprint Show.
As you prepare for, transition into, and navigate retirement, there's one thing you're sure to have: questions. Lots of questions about retirement. Like, when can I retire? Will I run out of money? Who pays for nursing home care? And many, many more.
Axum Planning and Wealth Management uses the Beta Blueprint retirement planning software to help answer your questions.
This program takes stacks of documents from every area of your financial life and converts them into one large picture. Just as you would never buy a house without seeing it first, why would you ever retire without being able to visualize it? By being able to see the whole picture, you can then make better decisions about your retirement. First, the blueprint looks at your top goals and concerns. Then, we look at your age and the trigger age decisions you have to make, like when to take Social Security, Medicare, and required minimum distributions. Next, we analyze your fixed income streams and compare that to your retirement lifestyle. For most people, their lifestyle exceeds their income, so we determine which assets to tap to make up the difference. When looking at assets, there are 3 key numbers we want you to know. The first number is the risk score of what you own. Every investor has a risk tolerance, and every investment has a risk score. The risk scale runs from 1 to 99, and the S&P 500 has a score of 78. We use a scientific framework that won the Nobel Prize for Economics for its ability to identify true risk tolerance. If you were taking too much risk, when would you want to know? The second number we want to know is the maximum drawdown of what you own. Maximum drawdown is the maximum loss from a market peak to a market trough. The maximum drawdown of the S&P 500 in 2008 was about 51%. What was the maximum drawdown of what you own? And the third number is your annual withdrawal rate percent. If you're taking too much here, you could run out of money. Finally, we look at your insurance and long-term care. Do you have life insurance? If so, what type, and does it expire? We analyze the income reduction from losing a spouse. We want to know if the surviving spouse will be protected. Have you planned for long-term care? Do you know all your health care options? Being able to put all this information in picture format is like watching holistic planning come to life. Your financial picture helps us identify the potential cracks and red flags in your overall retirement plan. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Discover the power of the picture for your retirement. Learn how to get a blueprint of your life.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show. I'm your co-host, Mark Henry, and of course, I'm joined with the CEO himself, Tim Lofton. Tim, this has been some amazing conversation and feedback, and I know the viewing audience is appreciating it. But I want to talk about a couple things in this segment, if we can.
Sure.
Asset allocation. I've read, and you have mentioned, that that's one of the biggest keys to actual retirement planning is proper asset allocation. So when I think about that, I've heard of people, and I know this happens, where they get their 401 and they're, real quick fill out the form and pick a few things, and here we are 10 years later. Is it really possible that those things they picked 10 years ago are the same holdings they ought to have today?
Well, no,
it's
Mark,
unlikely, isn't it?
Like I said earlier in the show, I have the privilege of sitting down because we sit around the table with all the experts, right? I mean, we've got the CPA and the estate planning attorney and the wealth management team, and I get to hear them talk to our clients about asset allocation and wealth management. I'm the planning guy, right? And so from a planning standpoint, the biggest thing with asset allocation, pre-retirement versus post-retirement, is that it's a completely different thing. We don't even look, as a planner, I'm not looking at what you would typically think of as traditional asset allocation, where we're talking about, growth in income and that type of thing. We're looking at post-retirement asset allocation, which is income now, income later, or money that's going to be in reserves that's going to probably pass on someday. That's our allocation. And so it's a completely different
income now, income later, and wealth transfer.
Yes.
Wow.
So
I love that.
Yeah,
I haven't heard anybody else say that.
It's a different approach.
I like it.
Thanks.
I think in this case, different's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So tell me about this thing that you're pretty passionate about called Riskalyze? Riskalyze.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because you're very passionate about it. I haven't seen that used.
I am. Riskalyze is a software program that won the Nobel Prize for Economics.
Wow,
And
that's impressive, right?
It is.
I mean, that's as good as it gets.
It is. That's
the top of the chart.
That's the top of the chart.
Okay.
And the thing that I love about it is when folks come into our office and they meet with the wealth management team, they give them their statements, and the wealth management team will put those statements into Riskalyze and able to generate a report that does some pretty neat things. The first one is it tells them or gives them a risk number of how much risk it is that they're taking, and puts that, in terms that they can easily understand. But here's the kicker. It can go back and look at other periods in time. That portfolio, the way that it sits today, they can look at it in 2008, 2013, see exactly what happened with those investments. And the thing is, if a lot of times the portfolio that people own today is not the one they owned in 2008.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it through that lens of, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this thing actually went down 30, 40, 50, 60%.
Wow.
Would you want to know that heading into retirement, that your portfolio was susceptible to that? And that's really where our wealth management team, and they are fiduciaries, are able to come in and give advice that I think is pretty powerful.
Sounds needed is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Sounds very needed. But I love this when you talk about the income side, because I think about how I've done life with a paycheck. And I think most people have done it that way, haven't they?
Sure.
And sometimes the paycheck was larger and sometimes it wasn't as large. And I adjusted my lifestyle based on that. Well, when I think about the planning the way you describe it, I think about what I like to call, let's say, a typical retiree, and there's no typical anything anymore.
Right.
But let's just pick an age of what, 60, 65 for retiring?
Sure.
All right, so let's say 65. What I would like to know when I get to that age is how much can I spend now while I'm still hopefully healthy and active, but I don't want to be out of money later. And I think that's where I've seen so many people get it wrong, because they were afraid to spend because they didn't want to run out. That's the number one rule, right? But they missed what, they used to call it the golden years. I don't know why they call it that. I think it's ridiculous. But they missed all these things they said they would do because all they did is what? Hang on.
Mark, and I'll tell you, we have this conversation over and over again. And in our viewers' defense, if you were raised by Depression-era parents,
No doubt.
World War II generation parents, you were taught a certain set of core values.
That's right.
Being conservative is ingrained in the folks that come and meet with us.
There's no doubt.
And we're in the Midwest. We have Midwestern values, and we're a conservative part of the country. So often I have to remind people that when you're taking your budget and trying to figure that out, we're not talking about what you can survive on. We want to know what you can thrive on. And if the number's too high, we'll tell you. But so often when we start talking to people about budgeting, they're trying to figure out how they can basically just scrimp and get by, versus they've just worked 30, 40 years. We want this to be an amazing time. You mentioned the golden years. We want them to live that out. And so one of the things that we have our clients do is we have them make a bucket list. And I know that sounds funny.
I love it.
But we have them make a bucket list. And you know what the next step is, Mark? We have them put it on the calendar. Because if you don't put those things on the calendar, they just don't happen.
I love it, Tim. They're telling us we got to go to break. This show is going so fast. We're going to have to get the networks to get you a bigger time slot because this show is flying by. I want to get these phone lines open.
Okay.
Remember what Tim just said. Survive in retirement or thrive. That's a big deal, isn't it? The number to call today is 855-684-3485. Again, that number is 855-684-3485. You're calling in to get your questions answered, to get your very own retirement blueprint. I've seen others charge $1,000 or $1,500 or more for something like this. They're going to give it away absolutely complimentary with no obligations for the next 10 callers. But there is one obligation, actually. You have to pick up the phone and call. Now is the time to take control of your retirement future and get your questions answered. Tim is agreeing to sit down with you personally, but you have to do one thing. Pick up the phone and call 855-684-3485. We've got so much more coming up on Retirement Blueprint.
When was the last time you saw your financial professional? Are you getting the most out of the strategy that was created for you? Although you've done a great job finding someone to help plan for your future, are you 100% sure that you were given the right strategy? We can help answer these questions and more with a complimentary second opinion evaluation. We will take a look at what you have in place and then help determine if you're well positioned to get the most out of your future retirement income. In the event that it is not, we can help by making suggestions and showing you how to get on the right path. You wouldn't get just one opinion when it comes to a major health decision, so why would you treat your most important financial decision with such disregard? Call today for your no-cost, no-obligation second opinion evaluation to see if you're getting the most out of your retirement income plan.
Welcome back. You're watching the Retirement Blueprint Show. I'm your co-host, Mark Henry. Of course, we're joined with the CEO himself, Tim Lofton. Tim, thanks again for having me on. This has been so much fun. I've got to go back to what you said in the previous segment there. Survive or thrive in retirement. I mean, when you put it like that, I've heard these things about, well, you need to plan for 80% of what you're making when you're working to retire. You know, you need to retire about 80%. And I thought, well, I kind of like my life right now when I heard that. And I don't know what 20% of my lifestyle I'm ready to give up.
Right.
I think that's kind of crazy, isn't it? And so this concept of actually retiring and spending less, it's like the first time in your life you have what? Time. And so I don't want to be one of those that survives retirement. I want to thrive in retirement. But, you know, with COVID last year and all the things that happened, many people I meet and greet and talk to and callers call into the show, the questions are all the same. It seems like there's an awful lot of worry for people right now in retirement because of all the changes in the world, the country, the disease, all the stuff.
Right.
It gave them a tremendous amount of worry. And I don't know that we were designed to work 30 years and then retire and have to worry about it. How do you keep them from doing that? How do you take the worry out of living in retirement?
Mark, COVID just added an additional worry, but it didn't create worry. People were worried before.
Yeah.
And you know what? They should be. The worry comes from unanswered questions. You know, it comes from unanswered. It comes from things like, you know, when we're sitting in, you know, one of the charts that we show people shows what happens to income if a spouse passes away or a spouse goes into long-term care. Okay. And when you have two people sitting there that see a 50, 60, 70% decrease in their guaranteed income because of one spouse passing away, that was a fear before. It just wasn't defined. They didn't know what it was. Now they can see it in black and white. More importantly, we know exactly what dollar amount we have to replace. And so as you start to uncover these different concerns like time in long-term care, a decrease in Social Security. I mean, you've seen the website, right?
I know.
It says it's going down.
It says it's happening.
I don't believe that it'll actually happen. I think that would be political suicide.
Yeah,
but
you're a glasses half full kind of guy. I think I may be the half empty because I'm afraid it might. So, but well, again, that's something we talk about. Okay.
Sure. But the idea is that people have a certain amount of fear that are based on factual thoughts. The thing you have to do is define what those fears are and then simply create a solution. You remember I was in the military and we spent 20% of our time as an infantry officer on a plan, coming up with a plan. We spent 80% of our time figuring out what we're going to do with all the different things that can go wrong with our plan, because they were going to go wrong. Something was going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And when it comes to life and retirement, I mean, you and I have both had things in our lives that have gone wrong.
Many times.
Right?
Yes.
And it's easy when we're still working because we got a paycheck coming in. When things go wrong and you don't have a paycheck coming in, Mark, it's a different deal.
You make this seem so much easier than most people think it is. I love how you said that the worry is real, but there's solutions for it. And then that takes the worry off the table.
It does. Yeah,
and that's just amazing. That's what makes your firm so different because, you know, again, good men and women working in these big box retail firms, but they have to take the next person in. They got to get that person out as quickly as they can to take the next one in because they have quotas and things like that. And that's the difference. You're not trying to bring the next one in. You're trying to solve the solution and the plan for the one that's currently in front of you.
That's true.
And it just makes it so different. And I don't know if you realize how rare you are, but I want to just go ahead and say this. Your passion really comes through. I hope the viewing audience can see that, because I sense it in here. You're very passionate about this work.
Mark, I mean, to our viewers, we're very passionate about what we do. And we're passionate about the solutions that we come up with, because these are real lives that are impacted by everything that we do. And so coming up with solutions that will ensure that a couple and their family is taken care of, there's no greater honor than that.
That's amazing. And that's what's so special about your firm. Before we go off air, we've got a couple of other questions I want to ask. So, income planning, we've talked about it on previous shows and stuff, but it seems like that's one of the bigger keys when you can look at someone's, you call it a spending plan, and know that they have 80, 90, 100% of their fixed expenses and retirement expenses covered with the monthly income that comes in. That's got to be reassuring for people, isn't it?
It does. I mean, our goal is to get to 100% with every client. It doesn't always happen, but that's our goal, to ensure that we can provide 100% of that income guaranteed some way, somehow.
Well, I got to think that if I knew that I'm retiring and what I want to do in life is, would you say mailbox money? It just shows up and goes in my account. And so wouldn't that be the same way I did working? Because I had a paycheck, I worked, I got a paycheck, and I was able to spend.
Right.
Well, if in retirement I got that paycheck, even though it's my own money, but if I got that paycheck and it was, you said guaranteed, is that the right word? Okay. And wouldn't that take some of the worry out of my own personal retirement?
Without a doubt.
Amazing. This shows we're running out of time. We got to go to the phone lines right now. The number to call, there's only a few minutes left, a few seconds left, truly. The number to call, 855-684-3485. Again, 855-684-3485. Tim has agreed to take the next 10 callers and create your very own retirement blueprint. To sit down with Tim and get your questions answered, you can leave your checkbook at home. It's absolutely complimentary with no obligations. I've seen others charge $1,000 or $1,500 for this. It's absolutely complimentary. The only thing you're required to do is pick up the phone right now. Operators are standing by. 855-684-3485. You know it's 2021. You deserve it. It's time to take control of your retirement future. Thanks for watching today, and watch us again next week on Retirement Blueprint.